Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we are going to talk about one of the more unusual moments in this region. This time we're going to talk about something that I've heard of since my youth, the case of the Red Fox. A man known as Doc Taylor. Um, what was his full name here? Uh, do, 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 do. Marshall Benton Taylor was his name. He was also known as Doc Taylor and especially known as the Red Fox. It is such a large piece of history in this region that there was a play based on the events called Red Fox Second Hanging. That was actually created by Roadside Theater and then turned into a film version. So yeah, um, it's an interesting story. The issue goes, um, he was hanged. The second such execution in the county, Wise County, Virginia. Um, so the story is an interesting story to start off with. Let's talk about Red Fox, who he was a bit. Um, he was a red-headed, red-bearded um, preacher who was popular. He was a doctor. He was a philosopher. He was a mystic and even a U.S. Marshal at one point. Let's see. Um, they say he was a good kid coming up. Um, and he had even um, in his, I guess in his youth, late teens, early 20s, tried to wanted to become a doctor and studied medicine under a Dr. Stallard of Lee County, Virginia, who was his uncle. Um, Now, he did serve as a doctor for a few months, but in 1861, the Civil War broke out. He would join as a member of the 64th Virginia Cavalry, and supposedly would, after the war, come home to resume his practice. Um, he, though, would become a preacher in the Methodist Church and then later the Baptist Church. He would move from Wise County, Virginia, over the border into Kentucky and lived in Letcher County, Kentucky for a while. Letcher County borders Wise County, so it's just like literally a hop over the mountain there. Um, let's see. What else is going on? Um, he became um, appointed deputy for a United States Marshal in Wise County. And he went straight after some of the moonshiners in the mountain country, in the back hills. Um, it was supposedly during his time as a deputy for the U.S. Marshal, he came into conflict with a man named Ira Mullins, who attempted to pass through Wise County with a wagon of liquor, and supposedly Taylor had a posse who had quickly gathered, and they captured this wagon. And while there was a number of shots fired, only one person was said to have died. Um, but yeah, uh, Taylor would then lose his position as a deputy. But this set the stage for a hatred and a resentment between both Ira Mullins and Doc Taylor. Um, Taylor would even um, try to carry out an attack on Mullins, which failed and fled back to Kentucky. Now, um, this brings us to the major moment of the Red Fox. Um, it was here that Mullins was taking another load of whiskey in several barrels to Kentucky, accompanied by his family. The Red Fox himself was made known through some source and set up an ambush on the top of the mountain, um, of where Pound Gap was. So it's like leaving Virginia going into Kentucky. He was literally, I mean, not that far from the Kentucky border. Because, as I said, there's literally a mountain that sets the border between Kentucky and Virginia where Pound is considered. So, but the Red Fox also gathered the help of Calvin and Heenan Fleming. Um, they set up their ambush, and on May, they have May the 14th here. I'm not sure what the exact day was, if it was indeed the 14th. Uh, this is the It was somewhere around that time because on here it says May the 13th on another source, but yeah. He and the Fleming brothers set up the ambush, and this is in about May the 14th, 1892. They set up and waited for Mullins and the approach of his wagon, which also was with his family. Uh, Now, Jane Mullins, uh, Ira Mullins' daughter-in-law, his wife, his son Wilson Mullins, the driver of the wagon, John Campbell, a hired hand, Greenberry Harris, and John Mullins, a 15-year-old son, and I believe they said there was also an infant son. No, it's his 15-year-old son because it says, um, yeah. But all of them were together with Ira Mullins as they traveled. Because, living in this area, you have to make money whatever way you can, and he did so by delivering alcohol. He was taken into Kentucky. Um, but the Red Fox jumped out with the Fleming brothers and shot all went crazy with the bullets. The only people that is said to escape, who managed to get away, was Jane, his daughter-in-law, and his 15-year-old son, John. Although yeah. So, um, Jane Mullins was the one who made it back to Wise to tell uh, to inform the authorities of what had happened. Um, so immediately, um, there was an attempt to find Taylor and the Fleming brothers. Um, Now, uh, the Red Fox Taylor would actually um, hide in his own son's house in in a uh, in a loft when which was in Norton, Virginia, which is in the same county as Wise and Pound. But yeah, um, from there he got onto a train secretly and was headed trying to get into West Virginia to get away from the law. But he ended up um, getting getting caught by detectives um, who would catch him in Bluefield, West Virginia, or the train was headed to Bluefield, West Virginia. Again, remember this is before the right before the 1900s, so a lot of stuff is fuzzy. I have conflicting reports on my sources, but I'm trying to piece things together as well as I can. Um, but yeah. So Taylor was captured. The Fleming brothers seemed to uh, keep getting away and escape authorities, but eventually they would end up in a shootout um, where Cal Fleming would be killed while Heenan Fleming would be arrested and brought back to Wise County to stand trial. He would be acquitted, supposedly. Um, but yeah. Um, mm, Now, he would do several things after being convicted in December of 1892, after he stood trial in Wise. So, uh, the death sentence itself was delayed due to Taylor's several appeals, um, but in October of 1893, he was finally taken up to a covered gallows behind the courthouse, and his sentence was carried out. So, yeah. But this is a story that has a moment that has been kind of really remembered in this area. Like I said, there's even a trail called the Red Fox Trail. It is just over a mile in length, 1.15 miles, but it is in the Washington and Jefferson National Forests, and right before you get to the Kentucky border. I mean, it's not far at all. Several businesses are often called the Red Fox this, the Red Fox that. I don't know if it's necessarily just connecting with Taylor, but yeah. Now, Taylor himself, like I said, was an unusual character. He had been a preacher, a doctor, a deputy for a U.S. Marshal, mystic, all kinds of things. Soldier. But yeah, um, he even claimed that he had visions um, because of his religious faith that he would die and come back in 3 days like Jesus, and his attackers would be dealt uh, severe punishment by Christ. So yeah, he was an interesting character. But it is a big deal here. And yeah, Marshall Benton Doc Taylor, the Red Fox, and his massacre of the Mullins family, all because of a feud he had formed with Ira Mullins, which this area unfortunately is known for feuds. There's another famous feud that happened on the Kentucky West Virginia border. It's perhaps the most famous feud of all time, the Hatfield McCoy feud. Well, most famous feud in the U.S. of all time. So, yeah, this area is very well known for these type of things, these feuds. So, but yeah, there's so many little events. Like I said, the Edith Maxwell trial. Wait till I do a video on that. Oh my goodness. That got up to the, you know, infamy and popularity of the Scopes monkey trial in its day. So, like I said, there's some very interesting tales from this area. But I'll go ahead and post sources in the description. And as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tries to tell you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.